How are you feeling? How are you doing? How has this whole pandemic been on you and your family?
It's been okay. I mean, it's a little scary. Nobody has gotten it close to me, but you never know what could happen. I have like a grandfather who's in his 90s, so we've been really cautious. My mom is a nurse, so she was like really careful. Some people in my family have like kind of like health issues, so just been really careful. But luckily, we've been okay as a family, and it's definitely changed things. There's not much hugging and kissing anymore. There's more like elbowing, but I got to get good with my elbows anyways for my fight. So.
How does that play a factor in whether or not you accept a fight throughout the pandemic? I know a lot of people are like, I don't really care. I'm just going to fight anyway. But I'm sure these thoughts are on the back of your mind. Obviously you don't want to put your family at risk, your friends at risk. So what sort of things do you balance when taking a fight during all of this?
Well, yeah, that makes you make a good point about putting people at risk. So, I had considered in general, just, if there was a fight opportunity, being patient and having that opportunity would be awesome because, you know what, I'm getting older and there's not going to be much I'm 35. So, if this whole thing pans out for like the next 10 years and nobody can fight or do anything, then I'll be like 40, 50. So I definitely would be taking fights regardless. But I was planning, no matter where it would be, to quarantine for the 2 weeks after, if I did come home and I did travel. Luckily, I am in the state of Connecticut, so I am right where I live, so I don't think I'll do the 14 days, but I will be careful. I probably won't go see my grandfather. I barely do now. Like, I'll see him, but I won't really like hug and stuff like that, just to be careful, just in case.
How has training been throughout the entire thing? I've talked to a lot of fighters, and most of them have been like, I've kind of dialed down on the like sparring and whatnot because I can't, but they've been doing more cardio and running. So what's that been like for you, and what sorts of alterations have you made throughout the entire pandemic?
Yeah, I think a lot of us are in the same boat. I was kind of doing like 2 to 3 days, or 2 to 3 sessions a day, whether it just be like a strength and conditioning and then going to the gym and sparring and doing some like just regular shadow boxing and drills with classes. But that obviously gyms had to close. They can't have people touching and sparring with mixed martial arts, specifically even wrestling. I was really getting really excited with my wrestling, and that's almost like the worst. Like you're like literally that in jiu-jitsu. So that was a little tough, but yeah, outdoors, a lot of things. My best friend and coach and his fiance live on a lake, so I learned how to swim in a lake, even though it's a little creepy versus the pool. There's things underneath that I don't know what's in there. Biking, I got my bike fixed. Try to kind of figure out what was going around my house because I don't have a bike rack, so I was just driving the bike around, and the boyfriend and I, we were doing some lifting at the house. But yeah, just trying to get it in any way we can. I started a garden, so I'm moving around at least outside. So.
You were scheduled to compete, was it back in, I think it was in March. I think you were one of the last events to really kind of like cancel because of the pandemic. Describe the roller coaster of emotions. I mean, you're getting news that it might cancel, but yet it's not officially canceled, so you're still kind of prepping for it. So describe all of that up until the cancellation, kind of like everything that's kind of unfolding.
Yeah, I mean, it was weird because we were hearing like there might be something coming up with COVID. They might have something, but I was kind of like, just make the weight, focus on the weight cut, focus on getting there Thursday, and just like don't worry about anything else. So I didn't really have like that emotional like, oh, it might get canceled, it might not. It was just do the same thing you normally do and don't change anything, and see what happens. And at that point, we made weight. We went to enjoy our food after, and the next day, hair braiding, ready to go for the fight. Like, I think we were eating lunch, and that was when the rumors really started coming in with the messages and things. Because when I'm cutting weight too, I'm not really looking at like the internet or talking to my friends. I'm like just focused on the fight, making weight, and then I'm like studying what I'm going to do in the fight against my opponent. So that was like the day of the fight when the whole like, okay, it's official, you're not going to fight. I'm like, until I hear it from an actual person from Bellator, I'm not going to change anything. And then like officially they told me. So I was like, okay. And yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Emotionally, it did suck, but I'm just, I understand they have to be safe. They don't want us to get sick. So you just kind of just dealt with it and you just went forward,
Yeah, so it was supposed to be the biggest fight of your career, possibly, against Leslie Smith. And it kind of worked out because you got, in my opinion, an even bigger fight upcoming this weekend, in Julia Budd. So kind of describe, I guess, the emotions here, fight week, the biggest fight of your life. How are you feeling a few days out?
I feel great. Every fight is I kind of like trying to be in the moment. Every fight's the biggest fight at the moment. Sometimes people will be like, oh, you're fighting Julia Budd, but what do you think of Cyborg? I'm like, hey, how about I'm right now fighting Julia Budd? So that's all I'm thinking about at the moment. Okay. So just, yeah, I'm excited to just get in there and get the job done. So it's gonna be fun.
What does your fight week routine look like? It's fight week, so I'm sure I've heard a lot of people say like, oh, Rafion Stotts, like he watches Netflix, he just kind of relaxes, just kind of tunes everything out. What's it like for you, and how is this, having to go in quarantine for 48 hours? How has that kind of like affected your fight week preparation?
Well, I don't sit still very well, so I could say that. So being in a room, I'm here with my best friend and my coach's fiance, Missy, and I'm thankful that she's here. Because if it was any of the coaches, I love those guys, but they probably would have killed me by now because I'm like, woo! So yeah, I have an actual rower in the room, so I'm able to do some exercise with that, and we have some plans to do some other yoga and all kinds of just, burpees and jumping jacks. I have a jump rope and, something that we're moving around at least. I might even just jump on the bed randomly just because I can. So I'll find ways to just like kind of get those calories in, but it's definitely different. Like normally I'd probably wake up, go to the pool just to get that extra cardio in the morning. And then I would either be writing in my notebook notes and going over strategy with my coach and a couple other people and then training. So it would be light, but still like doing something where I'm interacting with a lot of people. So it's a little different being in a room, but Misty's here and I'm happy at least she's here.
I know you said, every fight to you is your biggest fight, but you have to look at Julia Budd and look at her accomplishments. I mean, she was Bellator champion. Her only losses are to three of the greatest females of all time. How do you view her as an opponent, and what sorts of alterations to your mindset and your training goes into this, knowing how good she is and her background?
Yeah, she's been in the game, I think, over 20 years or about 20 years. She has a lot of experience, a lot of cage time, ring time. She's patient. You can, there's a lot of video footage on her where I can watch her fights. So this time around, I think the difference actually for the last year and a half, before the Leslie Smith fight was me kind of studying my own fights more and studying like how I would fight myself and working with my coaches on, finding where my areas of opportunity for my opponents would be. So I can capitalize on understanding like, oh, well, if I was going to fight myself, I would do that. So that has helped me a lot. And that has changed. And then just in general, just being really cautious on like studying her footage to see like where she's really good and where she has, where's their vulnerabilities are for fighting her. So yeah.
You're coming off two close victories. How do you review those tapes and being like, okay, look, they were close fights. These are areas where I can improve, or do you focus more on her? How do you balance it? Like, do you watch more of your tape and see areas you can improve, or do you look at her tape and find flaws and errors she makes? And how do you balance that?
It's more about me. Like I started with everything. I started boxing, doing jiu-jitsu. I have more jiu-jitsu tournaments under my belt just because you don't have to get blood tested and all that stuff. So I was able to jump in as much as I could. But and then there's a lot of other a lot of skills that I have that in a lot of my fights, I don't necessarily see myself applying them. And it's just, there's an adrenaline rush. Sometimes you're like, I just want to get the job done. Like, let me, so anything can happen in the cage. It's different for everybody. So, I do study myself a lot to see, oh, wow, look at what I'm doing there. I think that's more something that I do is study a little bit more about myself than the other people. Because sometimes there's no footage on another person that's your opponent. And you just have to go in there and get the job done anyway. So.
Do you think that's a perk as well, knowing that, your footage, some of your footage may not be as accessible as hers? It might be a little bit harder to find some of your tape. Do you think that's an advantage for you?
I mean, maybe, but like at the end of the day, like I feel like every fight I try to, I want to apply more of my game plan. I'm the better fighter every time I get in there. So I don't know if it'll matter, to be honest, even if there was a lot of footage out there.
I know you said you didn't really want to talk about a potential matchup with Chris Cyborg, but I have to ask, if you get this thing done on Friday night, is that a fight you'd be interested? I'm sure it's something that you'd love to and to have, but and how would you match up with Chris Cyborg?
Yeah. So first of all, when I get this thing done on Friday night is the terminology I would use, and I'm not. It's awesome. It's a great opportunity to fight Julia Budd. It's a great opportunity to potentially be able to get to the next level and fight Chris Cyborg. But no matter what, there's always, I'm always learning and I'm always going to progress, and I'm not going to turn that fight down. She's an amazing fighter. Both of them are, but there's always, everybody's beatable and there's always a way. So.
There's another fight that night. Ryan Bader is headlining that card against Vladimir Nemkov. How do you predict that one going?
I'm not sure. I feel like, to be honest, it's been a little bit crazy because of COVID. So I feel like for me, for example, during the whole COVID thing, I have developed a lot more patience and appreciation. So I really don't have a prediction. I think anything can happen, like coming out of that COVID craziness, that we're all in a different place now. So I'm just kind of excited to be able to hopefully watch it after my fight. So we'll see, because sometimes I got to wait and go in the back, and then, so that'll be kind of fun though if I can watch it.
I want to ask. I'm sure you watch a lot of women's MMA. I'm sure you're a big fan. I mean, I've looked at the list: Gina Carano, Ronda Rousey, Chris Cyborg, Amanda Nunes. I'm like, who would I consider the GOAT? And I've been back and forth the past little while. Recently, I've been leaning Amanda Nunes. As someone who fights, I mean, I'm just seeing this from the outside. Someone who's been in the octagon, what is or been in the cage. Who do you have as number one female fighter of all time?
So I think that everybody, first of all, number one female fighter of all time is, everybody has something. Like Gina Carano, during when I was first starting out, was number one female fighter of all time at that point. You know what I mean? Right now, I see Chris Cyborg as the number one female fighter of all time, even though she did get beat by Amanda Nunes. It doesn't mean that Amanda Nunes could do it again. You never know. So I still see Chris Cyborg as right now the number one for at least my division. 145, 135 area. That's what I see.
I want to talk about the 145 division, because, I mean, in Bellator is starting to kind of establish it. They're kind of building it up. UFC's really just got like the 4 or 5 girls there. What do you think it will really take to build this division, to make it as big as 135 or 115? Do you think that there's just not enough talent, or do you think that maybe they just need to kind of like find a way to unite them, or how do you get this division up and running?
I went out to the Ultimate Fighter tryouts, the 145-pound division, and there was a number of really amazing fighters that I actually made friends with. We were there for a week. There was probably at least 10 girls that were between like 135 and 155 that were great. They're fighting for Invicta, some for PFL, some right now. One of them's in the UFC. She went a little lighter. Some of them have gone a little lighter. One of them, I think, went up to the PFL, was 155, I believe. So I foresee, like, if Bellator kind of just even like looks at that list of names and like starts signing people, I mean, we could definitely build a 145-pound division. I'm not sure that UFC really wants to do much with it. So, whoever's still there over on contract that gets off contract, they could even come on over, like Megan Anderson and such, whatever works. But I don't see anybody, or I don't foresee that there's an issue with building the 145-pound division. There's definitely enough people. It's just a matter of them calling some girls and getting them in.
With everything that's kind of unfolded, I mean, the only talk for a long time of MMA was about Fight Island. Have you considered, maybe going to fight abroad somewhere else throughout all of this? Or are you like a homebody who's like, I like fighting in the U.S., I like fighting in my hometown? Or are you someone who likes to travel for fights?
Oh, man, I would love to travel overseas. That'd be great. The farthest I fought in Canada. I fought Charmaine Tweet in Canada, in Regina, Saskatchewan. So, I'd go back to Canada happily. I would go anywhere. Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's some consideration with like those countries that are got, like, with the COVID, some illness and some issues with that. But I'm pretty sure Bellator is going to be very protective of its fighters and not just bring us to somewhere that is not safe. So let's hope. But yeah, I'm totally open to that.
All right, I'll ask you a couple more questions, and then I'll let you go. The big thing I find a lot of fighters have talked about is kind of the awkwardness of the no attendance. How do you feel that's going to affect your performance? I mean, you're going to be able to hear both corners, you're going to be able to hear commentary, but at the same time, walking out without a crowd has to feel a bit weird. Have you experienced anything like that? And if not, how do you think it's going to affect your performance?
I mean, well, if you consider like you're in your gym sparring, it might just be, there might not even be like a class going on. So maybe there's some music on. So it's not like much different. I feel like that in like a sparring session where there's not a lot of people, I got my corner, yelling at me and their corner yelling at them. I guess the biggest issue for me is that I'm not going to have any excuse if my corner tells me to do something and I don't do it. So I'm kind of like, damn it, I can't be like, I couldn't hear you. So that's the only thing. If I'm not listening to them, they're going to be like, I know you could hear me.
So last question, what sorts of things do you do in your free time, especially throughout the pandemic? I mean, I was bored as all hell and ended up starting, and I just decided to interview MMA fighters. What sorts of things do you do in your free time when you're not training and not prepping for fights?
Cool. So you did mention video games before our conversation, and it's funny because my boyfriend is a big gamer, and he has a PlayStation, and we've played a couple of things of like Streets of Rage. I sometimes will go up and watch him. He'll play his games, and I will probably watch like movies on Netflix, like you were saying too, like The Kissing Booth. Actually, me and Missy are watching right now, and just some girly movies, and
It's
or
an unbelievable movie, by the way, very underrated.
Yeah, so good. Oh my god! And sometimes he'll watch with me, and we'll mix it up. We have bunny rabbits. He also is a producer and musician, so he'll DJ in the house, and I will put on my light up shoes and dance around like we're pretty much at a club, and then I will shadow box and practice my martial arts. So that's what we've been kind of doing the whole time during COVID, and it's been fun. We've opened the garage and done it outside, so I got my garden. But yeah, that's pretty much most of it.
All right, I can't wait to watch you on Friday night. All the best. I'm really looking forward to it, and huge opportunity, co-main event spot. So all the best. Good luck.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, stay safe.
You too.